I still remember that morning as if it happened just one breath ago. My hands shook as I stood in front of the shop I had built with my sweat, my tears, and my 40 years of life. A red notice was pasted across the door, big letters screaming the words I never thought I would see. Seized. Property repossessed. My knees grew weak. My throat dried. I wanted to scream but nothing came out. My heart pounded as if it was going to burst out of my chest. People gathered around, whispering, pointing, some with pity, some with cruel smirks. I pressed my forehead against the cold shutter. No, this cannot be real, I whispered. My chest ached so badly I thought I would collapse right there. My children's voices rang in my ears, how proud they used to sound when they said, "That's my mother's shop. She built it from nothing." And now? Now I had nothing left. Not even the keys to my own shop. 40 years. 40 years of hard work, of waking before the sun, of missing meals, of saving every coin. Gone in one sudden brutal strike. I felt like my whole life had been stolen from me in the blink of an eye. I fell to the ground, my hands covering my face. I could hear people murmuring. Some said, "Oh, poor woman." Others said, "Didn't she see this coming?" But nobody understood. Nobody knew what I had been through. Nobody knew the mountain I had climbed to stand where I once stood. And now I was falling down that mountain with no one to catch me. Tears streamed down my cheeks, soaking the dusty ground. I wanted the earth to open and swallow me. The pain was unbearable. Like my heart was being cut into pieces. I could still see myself as a young woman, full of dreams, working day and night, praying for a future. And yet here I was, an old woman, broken, stripped of everything. But let me not rush too far ahead. Let me take you back to where it all began. Maybe then you will understand the depth of this wound, and why losing my business was not just about losing a shop, but about losing a piece of my very soul. I was only 38 when I first decided to open my own business. Before that, life had been a series of struggles. My husband, God rest his soul, was a kind man but not very strong in money matters. He worked as a carpenter, and though he was talented, the jobs were not steady. Many times we would go to bed hungry, not because we were lazy but because the world had been cruel. One day, after watching my children go without shoes while I mended their torn clothes for the 100th time, I made a decision. I will not let my children grow up this way, I told myself. My hands trembled but my heart was on fire. With the little money I had saved from selling vegetables by the roadside, I started small. Just a tiny corner stall. Nothing more than a table and an umbrella. But to me it was the beginning of a dream. I sold simple things: bread, soap, sugar, salt. I stood there from sunrise to sunset, sometimes even in the rain, smiling at customers even when my stomach growled with hunger. Slowly people began to trust me. They called me the woman who never cheats. If I didn't have what they wanted, I promised to get it tomorrow, and I always kept my word. Honesty became my weapon, my strength. Customers kept coming back. Years passed and my stall grew. From a small table, I moved into a wooden shack. From a shack, into a little shop with proper shelves. Each step felt like climbing a mountain with bare feet, but each victory made the pain worth it. My children grew, and so did my business. I remember the day I first painted the shop sign with my own name, Margaret's Provisions. I stood back and looked at it, tears in my eyes. It wasn't just paint on wood. It was proof that I, a woman who once had nothing, had built something with her own two hands. Life wasn't easy, but it was sweet in its own way. Customers laughed with me, neighbors respected me, and my children walked a little taller. I had become someone people looked up to. People said, "Margaret, you are a strong woman." I smiled, but deep inside I knew the truth. I was just a mother trying to survive. For 40 years, I poured my soul into that business. I invested every coin, every ounce of strength, every prayer. Through sickness, through storms, through loss, I kept the shop alive. And then it all came crashing down. It began on a bright Monday morning. The sun was warm, birds were singing, and I thought it was going to be a good day. I had just arranged fresh stock on the shelves when I saw a black car stop outside. Out came 3 men in suits. My stomach twisted. Something about their faces told me this was not good news. "Are you Mrs. Margaret?" one of them asked. His voice was cold. "Yes," I said, my heart thumping. He handed me a paper. My eyes scanned the words, but they blurred through my tears. Debt. Default. Seizure. They said I owed money. Money I had never even seen. They said my shop was no longer mine. No. No, this must be a mistake. I cried, my voice shaking. This is my shop. I built it with my hands. I don't owe anything. But they didn't care. Their faces were like stone. One of them nodded, and two men began pasting the red notice on my door. I tried to pull it down, but one man pushed my hand away. People gathered. Neighbors, customers, strangers. My shame burned hotter than fire. I begged. I cried. I even fell on my knees holding their hands, pleading for just one more chance. But they turned away as if I was nothing. I wanted to fight. I wanted to scream. But my strength was gone. It was like watching my whole life shatter into tiny pieces, and I couldn't stop it. And just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned and saw someone I never thought I'd see in that moment. Someone who carried a truth that would break me even more than the red notice on my door. The sound of those footsteps behind me sent a shiver up my spine. My heart was already broken from seeing the red notice on my shop door, but when I turned and saw the face standing there, my pain grew even deeper. It was my own son, Michael. My firstborn. The child I had carried in my womb. The boy whose tears I had wiped. The man I had trusted more than myself. But that day he could not even look me in the eyes. "Mother," he began, his voice trembling. I stared at him, confused, my chest heavy with dread. "Michael? Why are you here? What do you know about this?" He lowered his head, his hands twisting nervously. "Mama, I never meant for it to come to this." "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice cracking. My legs felt weak, as though they might give way. I clutched the doorframe for support. Michael's words came slowly, each one slicing through me like a knife. "I took a loan in your name. I thought I could pay it back quickly. I wanted to expand the shop, to make it bigger, for you, for the family. But things went wrong. The interest grew too fast. I couldn't keep up. I'm so sorry, Mama." For a moment, the world stopped. The noise of the crowd faded. The chatter of the men in suits became distant. All I could hear was my own heartbeat, loud, angry, broken. You did this?" I whispered. My throat was so tight it hurt to speak. "Mama, please." He stepped closer, but I stepped back, my hands trembling. "Michael, you used my name? My shop? My life's work." My voice rose, breaking into sobs. 40 years, Michael. 40 years I have labored for this. And you have destroyed it in one stroke." He fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "Forgive me, Mama. I didn't mean to. I thought I was helping. I thought I was doing something good." But his words felt like ashes in my ears. I remembered every night I stayed awake, counting coins, saving every little bit to make sure the shop survived. I remembered the sacrifices, the hunger, the sweat, the prayers. And now my own son had undone it all. The men in suits tapped their watches impatiently. "We have no time for this. The property is seized. She needs to leave now." I wanted to fight them. I wanted to scream at them. But my strength was gone. My knees gave way, and I sank to the ground, my tears wetting the dusty street. The crowd was silent now, their eyes heavy with pity and shame. Somebody whispered, "Her own son did this?" Another murmured, "How could he?" I buried my face in my hands. My son. My blood. The one I trusted most. Betrayal burned inside me hotter than fire. "Get up, Mama," Michael begged, holding my hands. "We can fix this. I'll find a way. Please don't give up." But how could I believe him now? How could I trust him again when his choices had stolen everything I had built? That night, I walked back home with empty hands and a heavy heart. My neighbors looked at me with sadness, but their sympathy could not heal me. Inside my house, I sat in the dark, staring at the walls, hearing the echo of Michael's words. "I took a loan in your name." Over and over, the words stabbed at me. I could not sleep. I could not eat. My mind replayed the scene of the red notice, the men in suits, the shame in my son's eyes. And then, as if fate had not already punished me enough, something worse came knocking on my door the very next morning. Something that would take my pain to a level I never thought I could survive. It was a letter. A letter that revealed I was about to lose not just my shop, but also the roof over my head. The knock on my door that morning was sharp and heavy, like the fist of fate itself. I had barely closed my eyes the whole night. My heart was swollen with grief, my face wet with tears. I sat on the floor, hugging my knees, still hearing Michael's confession echoing in my head. When the knock came again, louder this time, I dragged myself to the door. My hands shook as I opened it. Standing there was a young man in a neat shirt and tie. He didn't smile. He simply handed me a large envelope. "Mrs. Margaret?" he asked. "Yes," I whispered. My voice was hoarse from all the crying. He gave me a polite nod, turned, and walked away without another word. I stood frozen for a moment, staring at the envelope. Something in my spirit told me this was not good news. My chest tightened, my breath grew shallow. With trembling fingers, I tore it open. My eyes fell on the bold black letters. "Final notice of foreclosure." I gasped so loudly that the paper slipped from my hands and fell to the floor. My knees wobbled, and I had to clutch the wall to stop myself from falling. Slowly, I bent down, picked up the letter, and forced myself to read every word. The words blurred through my tears, but I understood enough. Not only was my shop gone, but now my house, my only shelter, the roof under which I had raised my children, was at risk too. They claimed the house was collateral tied to the same loan Michael had taken. My house, the very place where my children had taken their first steps. The place where my husband had breathed his last breath. The place I had prayed in, cried and laughed in. They wanted to take it away. "No," I whispered, shaking my head. "No, God, please, this is too much." I sank to the floor, clutching the letter to my chest, rocking back and forth like a child. My sobs filled the empty room. I felt like a bird whose wings had been broken. My home, my business, my pride. Everything was slipping through my fingers. When Michael walked in that afternoon, he found me still sitting on the floor, the letter beside me. His eyes widened when he saw it. "Mama," he whispered, picking it up. His face went pale as he read. I stared at him, my eyes red and swollen. "Michael, is this true? Did you also put the house at risk?" He dropped to his knees in front of me, crying like a little boy. "I thought I could fix it before it came to this. I thought I could make enough money to pay back everything. Mama, I never wanted you to suffer like this." "Enough," I shouted, my voice breaking. "You have taken my shop, my life's work. And now you want to take my home too? Where will I go, Michael? Where will your younger sisters sleep? Where will I lay my head?" He reached for my hands, but I pulled them away. The hurt in my heart was too deep. I wanted to forgive him, but the wound was still bleeding. That night, I sat in the dark again. My mind was racing, my heart heavy. Every corner of the house seemed to whisper memories. My children's laughter, my husband's gentle voice, the sound of rain on the roof. Could it all be snatched away just like that? I prayed until my throat hurt. "God, please don't let them take my home too. Haven't I suffered enough?" But deep down, I knew the storm was far from over. And I was right. 2 days later, men came to my door. Not with papers this time, but with hammers and tools. They had come to mark the house for repossession. I stood there, my heart pounding, my tears streaming, as they painted a big red X across my front wall. That was the moment I realized I was not just losing a business, but losing everything. The morning the men came back to my house, I knew my worst fear had come true. I had not slept the whole night. My heart was pounding so loudly it felt like the walls of my small home could hear it. Every creak, every sound outside made me jump. And then, just as the sun rose, I heard the heavy thud of boots on my doorstep. I opened the door and there they were. 3 men in work uniforms carrying tools, their faces blank and cold. Behind them stood another man in a suit, holding a clipboard. His eyes showed no mercy. "Mrs. Margaret," he said flatly, "today we reclaim this property. You must leave immediately." I froze. My hands clutched the doorway so tightly my knuckles turned white. "No, please," I whispered. "This is my home. This is all I have left. Please, I beg you, don't take it." The man shook his head. "The time has passed for begging. The debt is unpaid. We are simply following orders." Tears welled in my eyes. I dropped to my knees right there at the door. "Please, sir. I am an old woman. I have nowhere to go. This house. This house holds the only memories I have left of my husband, of my family. Don't take it away from me. But my cries fell on deaf ears. The man turned to his workers. Do it. And then it began. They moved inside like a flood. One pulled my old wooden chairs out into the yard. Another carried my pots and pans. They dragged out the faded couch where my children used to curl up and listen to my stories. Piece by piece, my life was being stripped away and dumped in the open street. I tried to stop them. I ran to one of the men and grabbed his arm as he lifted my cupboard. Please don't touch that. That's all I have. But he pushed me aside, not harshly but firmly, as though I was nothing more than an obstacle in his way. My neighbors stood outside, watching. Some shook their heads, some whispered among themselves. I could see pity in their eyes, but nobody came forward to help. Shame burned deep in my chest. I had once been the woman everyone respected, the woman who owned her own business. And now I was just an old woman being thrown out into the dust. Michael came running when he heard the commotion. His face was pale with horror. Mama! Mama! He rushed to me and tried to hold me up as I stumbled, weak from crying. Michael, I whispered, my voice breaking. Look at what you've done. Look at what they're doing to me. To us. He turned to the men, his voice angry and desperate. Please just give us more time. I'll work, I'll pay, I promise. But the man with the clipboard shook his head. It's too late. And just like that, the final blow came. They forced me out of the doorway and slammed the door shut. Then, with a loud metallic sound, they locked it. I stood there in the street, holding Michael's arm, my belongings scattered around me, neighbors watching, tears streaming down my face. My heart broke into pieces I knew I could never put back together. That was the day I became homeless. Homeless at 78. But as I sat there on the dusty ground, surrounded by the ruins of my life, something even more painful happened. Something that cut me deeper than losing my house or my shop. It came from a voice I never expected. From someone I loved dearly, whose words pierced me like a knife. I sat on the dusty street, my clothes clinging to me with sweat and tears, my belongings piled up like trash around me. The sun beat down on my weary body, and still I couldn't move. My legs felt like stone, my heart like shattered glass. People passed by, some whispering, some staring openly. I wanted to disappear into the earth, but the earth was silent. Michael sat beside me, his face buried in his palms. He was weeping, but his tears did not bring me comfort. His tears came too late. What good were they now, when everything was already gone? Then, above the murmurs of the neighbors, I heard a voice. A familiar voice. A voice that once used to bring me joy. Mother, look at what you've become. I looked up, blinking through my tears, and there stood my daughter, Anna. She had always been the proud one, the ambitious one. She had left home years ago to live in the city, promising to make a better life. She was dressed neatly, her hair tied back, her face set hard like stone. Anna, I whispered, reaching out a trembling hand. My child. But she did not step forward to take it. Instead, she stood with her arms crossed, her eyes full of disappointment. I told you, Mama. I told you that trusting Michael would ruin everything. And now look at you. Sitting on the ground like a beggar. Everything you built gone. Her words stabbed deep into my chest. I wanted her to hold me, to comfort me. But instead, her words became another wound on my broken heart. Anna, please, I begged. Don't speak to me like this. You don't know the pain I feel. You don't know what it's like to lose your life's work in one day. But she only shook her head. No, Mama. You should have been wiser. You should have listened. Now you expect me to fix this mess? Do you think I can carry all of this on my shoulders? Tears blurred my vision. I never asked you to carry it, Anna. All I wanted was for you to stand with me, just for a moment. I have lost my shop, my home, my pride. Don't take away my children too. Her face softened for just a second, but then she hardened again. She glanced at the neighbors watching, and her voice dropped to a whisper. Mama, I cannot be seen standing here with you like this. People will talk. They will think I am a failure too. Her words cut deeper than any knife. I felt like my heart had been torn into pieces all over again. Anna, my voice broke. I am your mother. But she turned away. her footsteps sharp against the ground as she walked off, leaving me there in the dust with Michael and my broken belongings. I pressed my hands against my chest, gasping as if I could not breathe. Losing my shop was painful. Losing my house was unbearable. But losing the respect and love of my own child, that was the deepest wound of all. Michael reached for me, his voice shaking. "Mama, don't listen to her. Please forgive me. I will make this right. Somehow I will make this right." But before I could answer him, before I could even wipe my tears, a new sound rose above the whispers of the crowd, a sound that froze my blood and made my heart drop into my stomach. It was the sound of a truck pulling up beside us. A truck filled with men, their faces hard, their voices rough. They weren't here to watch. They weren't here to help. They were here for something else. Something worse. The rumble of that truck sent chills down my spine. The engine roared like thunder, and when it stopped, the air fell silent. All eyes turned toward it. Dust rose in the street as the doors creaked open, and out stepped men whose faces were hard as stone. They wore no uniforms, but their presence alone made the crowd step back. Their boots hit the ground with heavy thuds as they moved closer, and I felt my heart hammering in my chest. Michael stiffened beside me. His tears dried instantly, his eyes wide with dread. He whispered under his breath, "No, they've come." "Who are they?" I asked, my voice trembling. But Michael didn't answer. His silence said more than words could. One of the men, tall with a scar running across his cheek, pointed at me and then at Michael. "Are you Margaret?" he barked. I swallowed hard, my voice barely a whisper. "Yes, I am." He sneered. "Good. Then you know why we're here. Your son owes us. And since he used your name, you owe us too." My blood ran cold. I clutched Michael's arm, my body shaking. "Michael," I gasped, "what have you done? Who are these people?" Michael's lips trembled. "Mama, they're the loan sharks. I borrowed money from them when the bank refused me. I thought I could pay it back before they ever came looking." The scarred man stepped closer, his eyes sharp like knives. "But he didn't pay it back. And now, old woman, the debt has tripled. We don't care about your sob stories. We want our money. Today." The crowd around us grew restless, whispering nervously. Some began to move further back. Nobody dared step forward. Nobody dared to protect us. "I don't have any money," I said, my voice cracking. "They've already taken my shop. They've taken my house. What more do you want from me?" The man's smile was cruel. "If you don't have the money, then you work for us. Or," he leaned close, his breath hot on my face, "we take something else that's valuable." My stomach twisted. I felt sick. "Please, I am an old woman. I have nothing left. Please have mercy." But mercy was not in their eyes. One of the men reached for the pile of my belongings, kicking at my old cupboard, scattering my clothes into the dust. Another grabbed Michael by the collar, pulling him to his feet. "Let him go," I cried, clutching the man's arm with what little strength I had left. But he shoved me back so hard I nearly fell to the ground. Michael shouted, "Leave her alone. This is between me and you." But the scarred man shook his head. "No. When you dragged your mother's name into this, you dragged her life into it too. And we always collect what we are owed." My whole body trembled. My lips whispered prayers that seemed to vanish in the hot air. "God, please save us. Don't let them destroy what little I have left." Then the scarred man turned to me again, his eyes narrowing. "You have 1 week. 1 week to find the money. If you don't..." His gaze swept over my son and then back to me. "We will take something far worse than your shop or your house." He snapped his fingers and the men released Michael. They climbed back into the truck, the engine roaring to life. As they drove off, a heavy silence fell over the street. The dust they left behind settled on my skin like ashes. I collapsed onto the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. My home was gone, my shop was gone, and now I was under the shadow of men who had no mercy. Michael knelt beside me, shaking like a leaf. "Mama, I'm so sorry. I never wanted this. I never knew it would get this bad." I stared at him, my tears blinding me. "Michael, they have given us 1 week. 1 week. Where will we find such money? We are finished." And just as those words left my lips, a sharp cry rang out from the crowd. People began to run, shouting, pointing. I lifted my head, my heart racing, and saw smoke rising in the distance. Smoke coming from the very street where some of my belongings had been moved for safety. The fire was spreading fast. My dear, if you have followed me through this painful journey, then you now understand why I say that losing my business after 40 years of hard work was not just about losing money. It was about losing pieces of myself. I lost my shop, the place that had given me dignity and respect. I lost my home, the place that carried the laughter and tears of my family. I even lost the trust one once had in my own children, for betrayal came from the one I loved most. And when the loan sharks and fire came into the picture, I felt as though the very universe had turned its back on me. But let me tell you the hardest truth I had to learn. Sometimes in life, everything can fall apart in one single moment. You can work for years, decades, even building brick upon brick, only for it to crumble in the blink of an eye. That is the cruelty of this world. Yet, my child, here is the lesson I want you to carry from my tears. Your worth is not in what you own. Your worth is not in your business or your house, or even in the approval of people. Your worth is in the strength that remains when everything else is gone. Yes, I cried. Yes, I broke. Yes, I felt shame that burned into my bones. But I am still here. Even with nothing, I am still alive. And as long as there is breath in me, there is still a chance to rise again, even if it is from the dust. To every young person listening to my story, learn from my pain. Do not put blind trust where wisdom is needed. Do not tie your entire identity to things that can vanish overnight. And above all, guard your honesty, because though people can steal your possessions, they cannot steal your character. I lost everything that the world could take, but I refused to lose my faith in God, my dignity as a woman, and my hope that tomorrow can still bring light. 40 years of labor disappeared in one moment, but the story of my heart, the story of my strength, will live on. And that, my dear, is how I lost my business after 40 years of hard work. Broken heart. My child, after 40 years of hard work, I lost it all. My shop, my home, my respect, gone in one single moment. Broken heart. But hear me. What I learned is this. Your worth is not in what you own, not in the walls of a house or the shelves of a store. Your worth is in the strength you have when life tears everything away. I was betrayed. I was broken. I was left with nothing. But I am still here. Still breathing. Still hoping. So learn from me. Protect your honesty. Guard your choices. And never tie your whole life to things that can burn, break, or be stolen. 40 years of my labor disappeared. But my faith, my dignity, and my hope remain. And that, my dear, is how I lost my business after 40 years of hard work.